Hey, hello everyone again. I'm so excited for the second session with Mariam Naseem. Mariam is such an inspiring woman. I remember when I first spoke with her about 3.5 years ago now. I was just in awe with her passion and her commitment to scientific research at NASA, beyond NASA. She's done so much work. I think I remember when I last spoke with you, you were pursuing your PhD, or you were working on your PhD. And you've been doing so much on LinkedIn as I've seen over the past 3 years. So I'm excited to catch up with everything you've been working on, your current research endeavors, and I'm sure she'll give a better introduction of all the incredible work that she's done and talk a little bit about her journey. But I'm very excited for today's speaker, so I'm going to hand it over to Mariam. She'll give a short talk, and then we'll open it up to questions, and we'll do like a little discussion. So over to you, Mariam.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gitika. And it's always a pleasure to be here and chat with these amazing individuals that you bring together in the room. I have a few slides, so I'll just share my screen and you guys let me know if you see them. Did they
Yes, we
come
can
up?
see your screen.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
We can see your
Wonderful.
slides.
I'm going to have to just switch the display settings here. And does this work?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay, great. Cool. Well, I call this the Young Professional's Guide to the Galaxy. And if you are a bit of a sci fi nerd as well, you'll realize this is from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'm Mariam, as Gitika kindly introduced. I'm currently doing a PhD at the University of Maryland, College Park. I live in DC. This is in collaboration with NASA Goddard. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I got here. And I call this the guide to, I guess, my galaxy in a way. But as I talk about the steps I took, you'll realize it was a bit of a non traditional path. And I want you to think about two questions. What do you want to do, be it in the space sector or beyond in your career, or the impact you want to have in your life? And then think about the skills you already have today and let this sort of journey enlighten you on all the additional skills that space needs and how you might fit into that story. So here I put a few pictures of all the, one could say, disjointed experiences I had before I joined the aerospace sector, but in a way it was all connected and it all added color to my story. And I'll share how that worked out in the next few slides. So I started out as a big sci-fi fan. I still am, and I was very influenced by Star Trek, thinking about those big questions about humanity's expansion in space and what could that look like, discovering new life, interacting with life, the impacts of artificial intelligence and emerging technologies here on Earth. So a lot of big themes in these movies and books, and they really inspired me growing up as a kid in Pakistan. That's where I was raised up until I was 18. And I moved from Pakistan to the US, to Texas, actually, the University of Texas at Austin, to do my undergrad in electrical engineering. And this was a really big move. I moved by myself. I was 18. I just put my whole life in two suitcases and decided to go to another country to see where this education would take me. I was still thinking about space, but it's funny, because growing up in Pakistan, it was a little bit of a stereotype that they wanted you to either be an electrical engineer or a doctor or do something in law. And these were sort of the acceptable professions. So I guess I got shoehorned a little bit into doing electrical engineering because both my parents are electrical engineers. But in the back of my mind, I was always still thinking about space. I ended up working though in oil and gas. It was interesting. I would go to these career fairs at UT Austin where I was doing my undergrad and try to interview with the big space companies, the names you may have heard like Lockheed Martin or NASA. And it was a bit discouraging because they would give me the interview, and then one of the first questions they'd ask was, "Are you a citizen of the US?" And I wasn't. I was from Pakistan. And they kind of shut off after that. So there is that little bit of I guess, regulation or challenges working as an international immigrant, student, professional in the aerospace sector that does exist in North America. And that's the reality I had to navigate around. And initially, there was just no way in. So I ended up working in energy. I was very interested in expanding my horizon internationally. I signed up for the adventure and I was like, okay, if I can't get into aerospace, let me just go big and sign up for a job in Russia. And that's how I ended up. The picture in the center is from me on an oil rig in Russia. And then our class picture, the group, is from our training center in Siberia. it was an adventure of a lifetime. I spent a year and a half out there, a lot of isolation, remote environment, huge language barriers. Most of the people in Sakhalin Island where I worked only spoke Russian, with the exception of us few foreign engineers. But it was really enlightening. I feel like very early in my career, it really let me explore who I am and how I am faced up against challenges. And I would go back and do it. It's been 10 years now since this first experience, but I would do it again if I could. And then what happened was, again, some visa uncertainty. I was working in oil and gas back in Houston. I got transferred after my time in Russia back to their center in Houston, but there was a lot of layoffs going on in the industry at the time in 2016. And a lot of my friends were being let go. If I was let go, I would have to move back to Pakistan. So I began thinking about other options. What do I want to do next? It really made me think about career, grad school. Is that an option? Where do I want to do grad school? And I decided on Canada, mostly because of favorable immigration policies. So in my story, you will hear some of these decision points being made because of my status as an immigrant and the uncertainty it was causing in my life, in my position. And it is a reality that a lot of international people have to grapple with. So I moved to Canada. I did an MBA there, so completely different, now doing business, but still interested in emerging technologies, still thinking about space. But at this point, I had sort of pushed it to the back of my mind and wasn't really sure if this hobby was ever going to become a career for me. After the MBA, I ended up working at a quantum computing startup. I went to Silicon Valley. It was really fun. We were raising a lot of money, very early stage, seed stage fundraising. So it was great. I had to wear a lot of hats. I was helping them with marketing. I was helping with fundraising. I was learning how to create different sort of information fact sheets about the market for our CEO. I just learned a ton, but ultimately, it wasn't the best environment for a few reasons, mostly company culture. And I'm happy to talk about that. I think in really small startups, the people you work with really matter. I ended up changing and moving to a really big bank in Canada. And this was where my career sort of got very comfortable. I was making a lot of money. It was a very established company. It was one of the biggest banks in Canada. And they would send me to these really big innovation conferences where I would see female entrepreneurs on stage talking about what latest financial technology app they've developed or how they're like starting their company and they're going to be looking at AI solutions for finance. And I would go and talk to them later and ask like, wow, this is really inspiring. You really knew what you wanted to do in your life, I guess. So how did you come to this decision and what made you want to start your own company? Because I was still searching. I wasn't really fully content with my role at the bank and I felt like I could do more. And it was funny that a conversation with one of the managing directors at Accenture, this lady who was heading up their entire blockchain division, made me surface again that love for space because she said, what do you really care about? I care about blockchain, but what is something that really drives you? And I started talking about space and she's like, wow, like I can see your eyes light up. You really are passionate about this. So why don't you join some clubs in Toronto or try to find where your community is? And I told her, I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where the club is. Is there like a meetup for space? Who are the players in Canada? Yeah, I just didn't know where to begin. It was funny. She ended up connecting me to her friend who was a lawyer who had organized a space conference in Toronto. And it was my first mentor in space, pretty much. This lady named Annika. We had a call and she was like, okay, Mariam, I have some people for you. I'm going to connect you to some startup founders in Canada. Here are some names. I'll make some introductions. She really opened the door for me and got my wheels turning to understand the ecosystem. And so by day, I was working, as you can see in this picture, at the bank. And by night and on the weekends, I was networking, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, at the Canadian Space Agency, at startups, trying to understand the ecosystem and have some conversations and see where I might fit in. At this point, like, I'll pause and just say that it's such an exciting time in space. You know, the players are really changing. The demographic is changing. Where once it used to be mostly governments that are running the show. Now we have so many new space players. SpaceX is a really big name now, but around the time when I was doing my undergrad, it was just starting up. But you see so many innovations like small satellites, reusable launch capabilities, all this ground station infrastructure. It's a very exciting time to be in space. In Canada, the ecosystem is a bit smaller than the US. So it's a little bit like a village. Like once you break in and you know who the players are, you sort of know everybody. So I was applying a lot. I was trying to see where I fit in. And my plan was to take my business skills from the MBA and try to do a lateral move and do some kind of economic market consulting. But the reality is that, yes, there's a lot of opportunities in space, which I want to get that message across to you. There's people who are doing art in space, looking at marketing for startups. We have a chief economist of NASA who just resigned, and that position will be open again for recruitment. There's architects where they're thinking about how do we take the environment of space and design for that? What kind of interfaces do we need between humans and machines? There's venture capital firms that are trying to fund new startups. So there's so much opportunity out there. It's a matter of the main takeaway I have at this point is it's a matter of taking the skills you have today and trying to translate that value to the space sector. Like you have to connect the dots. That's what I realized. I had so many experiences from the oil rig on Russia, from working in manufacturing, from the bank, from the startup, but I had to explain to employers how those skills are relevant to this new industry space that I wanted to get into. And I ended up joining the sector in Canada, in Montreal. So I made a big move. I moved to Montreal from Toronto. And I worked as a space consultant then with a firm that contracts to the Canadian Space Agency. And in following my passion, I will say it's not always a smooth or very comfy ride. I had to take a huge pay cut. I was making a lot of money at the bank, but I decided to take that pay cut to follow my passion. And it's sort of something for all of aspiring people who are trying to follow their passions to think about what are your values and what are things you can compromise on and what are things you can't. So I felt fortunate that I could take that chance and make that move to this city and take that pay cut and try to see if this is an industry I want to grow my career in. And that opportunity was very instrumental because it was a stepping stone for me in the industry. I got to work very closely with the Canadian Space Agency. I learned a lot about the market because I had to do analysis for a lot of satellite operators. Also, the CSA, the Canadian Space Agency, wanted us to think about new technologies that could be used for lunar exploration. So, a lot of market studies and understanding the industry, which is exactly what I needed at that time in my career. But then what happened was COVID happened. So I made this move in at the end of 2019. And we all know that like early 2020, end of 2019 is when COVID happened. So 4 months into this big move, moving to Montreal, starting this new job, basically everything shut down and we started working from home. I moved back to Toronto after 8 months, so a full year of like being with this company, most of the time remote. I ended up getting let go. There was a lot of loss of contract. They did not need as many consultants anymore, and I was one of the newest hires. So I didn't have a job. I was in the middle of a pandemic. I had made this big career move to work in aerospace and left my comfortable banking days behind. And now I didn't know what to do. I was talking to a mentor from the bank I used to work at, and I was like, oh my God, Karen, what should I do? Should I try to go back and apply to work in finance? Should I try to still get a job in aerospace in Canada? It's very hard. And I still remember what he said. He was like, Mariam, don't give up now. Like, don't just settle because you're in a very unique position. Not, a lot of people spend their whole lives not knowing what they're really passionate about. You know what you're passionate about, and you know you can act on it. So act on it. Like try to keep on going because you have this unique opportunity here, and it seems hard right now, but I think you can do it. So I ended up trying to still find a job in aerospace. I took the time to learn how to fly, so I explored some of my passions. These are some pictures from the one in the bottom right is from my first solo, so my first flight by myself in Toronto when I passed that milestone. So I used that time to fly and to look for jobs in aerospace. I ended up getting a fellowship at the Open Lunar Foundation, which was really great because I could work remotely with them while living in Toronto. And I also got an opportunity through the Space Generation Advisory Council to go to a conference in Colorado Springs called the Space Symposium. And there, by happy chance, at the Canada booth, I ended up meeting the president of the Canadian Space Agency, Lisa Campbell. It's a really wonderful lady. And I told her, Lisa, I've been applying to jobs at the Canadian Space Agency and I never hear back. I think they go into a black hole. What's happening? And she was like, wow, we really need your skills though. Here's my business card. Why don't you send me an email? Send me your resume. And I did. So I took her business card and I emailed her my resume. And I thought I'm never going to hear back from her. She's like the boss of the agency. She's too busy. Why would she respond? But she did. She responded the same day and she connected me to one of her executive directors in space exploration and industry strategy. And she said, "We're looking to hire, and Jason here is going to interview you." And that's how I ended up working at the CSA. So I had my rounds of interviews with my boss, my future boss, Jason, and I ended up working with them on contract for almost 8 months, I think. And at that time, I was also thinking about next steps. So this might be a theme you realize where I start thinking about what I want to do next. That's a me problem. I'm always like thinking, where can I add value? What's something that excites me? So while I was working at the Canadian Space Agency and also at the consulting firm, I realized that space is the industry I want to be in. It's my passion. I love this area, but I'm still trying to figure out my exact role in this industry. And I'm not sure it's just being a business person or a consultant or working in industry relations at the agency. I want to do something a bit more technical because I have an engineering undergrad, as you know. And I started thinking about the big questions. So this might be something where you can also reflect when you think about your careers or the areas you want to go in. What are the big inspiring questions that make you motivated? So for me, one of them was the future of human space exploration, humanity expanding into space. What is that going to look like? And the second really big question was astrobiology, which is a search for life beyond Earth. Are we alone? Is there life out there? Is there life in our solar system? How do we search for it? Like these were the big questions. And I ended up joining a program at the time called the IAF Launchpad Mentorship. Uh, by great fortune, my mentor in that program is NASA Associate Administrator Pam Melroy. So she was my mentor, and I was talking with her about these questions that I had. That I'm interested in spaceflight, astrobiology. I care about women and minorities in this sector, and I'm also thinking of potentially moving to the U.S. because of the opportunity pool there. And she guided me. She listened to all the different areas I was interested in, and we sort of settled on astrobiology might be better for me right now because I realized that I had been doing research in that already. That's another story. So while I was doing my business work, I was thinking about astrobiology, attending online seminars. And in one of the seminars, I was really fascinated by icy ocean worlds, which I'll talk about in the coming slides. These moons of Jupiter and Saturn in the outer solar system, underneath kilometers of ice, they have liquid water oceans. And that might actually be potential habitat for life. So I was attending one of these seminars, and a scientist from NASA was talking about his work. His name was Mark Neveau, and I emailed him later, and I was like, "Mark, I'm really interested in your research. Here's me, here's my background, and I want to get some research experience. I'm willing to do it as a volunteer." And we started working together. I was still in Canada, and I started doing modeling work for him. So I had been doing that for a few months already by the time I spoke to Pam, and I realized that if this is the area I want to go in, astrobiology, I'm probably going to have to do grad school, so a PhD, that it makes sense to build on the research experience I already have with Mark. And that's the area I ended up going in. So that's what I do today. Thanks to the support of Pam and her guidance, and then Mark, who I was doing research with remotely, I ended up putting together applications to apply to PhD programs in the US to do astrobiology and planetary science research, looking at icy ocean worlds. And today I'm at UMD. I collaborate with my same mentor, Mark, actually, who's now a co-advisor on my PhD. And it's really opened up such a world of opportunity for me, things I didn't even think of back then. Like I've been to conferences in Spain, that's the picture in the right, had opportunity to present my research at international conferences, got to finally visit JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab in Pasadena, California. I've done some advocacy work because I live in DC, that's the US Capitol in the background. And it's just been mind blowing. I didn't really realize that science, I love travel, and science has really opened up the opportunity for a lot of international travel, local and international. I'm very happy with that. And the other big thing is field work. So I also have a little takeaway for you. When I walked into the PhD, I didn't really know that I would be able to do field work. It wasn't really part of the plan for my PhD, but it was something I was always passionate about. So I took an idea to my advisor at UMD to do field work. I brought this opportunity to him to go to the Arctic, which are these pictures with all the snow and ice. We wrote a proposal together. It got accepted by the US Navy. And that's how we actually ended up collecting data out there. And that became part of my PhD projects. But it was an initiative I took to open up that field work for me. And the same thing with the Atlantic Ocean, the pictures on the far right, where you see me near the water and a ship. I applied to a program called STEM Seas, where graduate students can be mentors to undergrads that go to sea for the first time ever and also do complementary research while on the ship. And again, that was an opportunity that I found myself and applied to. So, in the position you're in right now, even if you don't see clear guidelines for these kinds of things that you want to do, be it field work or you want to go to a conference or something else, take initiative, like find opportunities for things you want to do. That's how all of this came into reality for me, and I couldn't be more happy because I really wanted to bring that hands-on element to my work. And so now on to you guys and to advice. Things that really made a difference for me was seeking out opportunities. As I said, different programs I applied to, be it the Launchpad mentorship where I was connected to Pam, the Space Generation Advisory Council where I met an amazing network of peers and got some scholarships to meet people at the international stage. The network for Ocean Worlds is very specific to my field, which is IC Ocean Worlds, but again, I got really amazing peer networks from here and many others like SEDS that you may have heard of. Where can you start? There's just so many opportunities out there. You don't have to stick to the organizations I mentioned or even the ones on this slide here, but just to show you that there's a breadth of people thinking about things from science advocacy to enabling human spaceflight and sending citizen astronauts to space. Learn about space. I started out by attending a lot of online webinars because it was the COVID days. I also ended up doing a summer program at ISU, the International Space University, and I met a really great network of peers there as well. So these opportunities expanded my horizon, and I would recommend anything you're interested in, start by exploring first. Just go online and see what different opportunities exist. Networking. For me, it was a lot of digital networking because it was back in, like I said, COVID times. So I would just be sending messages on LinkedIn to people I knew and didn't know, trying to fit it in that little word count that they have and explain who I am, what I want. And my main question was, I'm really inspired by what you do. How did you get to where you are? Do you have any tips or advice for someone who's just starting to navigate this path? And don't be afraid to put yourself out there via email or on these platforms. What's the worst that can happen? They might just not respond or they'll say no, and then it's fine. You can move on to the next person. And in this process, I've found really amazing advocates like my co-advisor at NASA. I literally just sent him a cold email after a lecture explaining who I am and I want to do research together. And now we've been working together for 4 years. Like this has been one of the most successful collaborations I've had so far in my career. And it came from a cold email. And, seek out opportunities like that to collaborate and to introduce yourself to new people. And with that, this is the last slide. I know I've been talking a lot, so I'll open it up to questions after this, but it's important not to give up. Sometimes things can feel really hard or there can be all these ups and downs in your path. Like I got let go during COVID, or I'm moving countries, or I'm taking a pay cut. And it can be your version of different issues you face. There can be rejections, there can be setbacks, but keep on trying to move forward and make progress a step at a time because in the grander scheme of things, as long as you're enjoying your life and doing things that are exciting and you care about, it's a win overall. And don't give up. Your passion, it will show and it will translate to opportunities. You'll attract the right kind of energy. It's never too late. I made a lot of these changes in my career in my late 20s. Like I was almost 30 when I started my space journey, and I'm now in my mid 30s doing a PhD. And you would think, oh, this is not a very linear path, or okay, like what are you going to do after this PhD? And I have ideas, or I may make my own path again, but it's really never too late to do what you want to do. And you have the skills, you have all your experience from before. Just because you changed a sector or you changed a role doesn't go away. It's not like it just vanished, everything else you knew. It's a matter of taking that and building on it. And truly, we do need mentors. We need advocates. We need to help each other out. We need to share advice and open doors. And if I can be that person for you, don't hesitate to reach out. Do apply to opportunities that are interesting to you in the sector, and don't ever self-reject. Like if you literally like you miss 100% of the shots you do not take, this is something that someone has said that's very accurate. Make sure that you put yourself out there. And with that, I believe that is all I have. We'll get back into the room and take your questions.
I just want to start off by saying every time I hear you talk, Miriam, I'm simply in awe. I remember I first interviewed you a few years ago, and I was blown away with just your perseverance. And I think although we may not be able to relate with every aspect of your story, I think everyone can connect with one part of it. And I just think that your journey and what you've done so far is just amazing. That last slide, I captured a picture of it because I'm just going to share that on LinkedIn because those are some important messages that have helped me in my life. And I'm sure everyone in this group can really relate to them. So, I mean, I'm just simply inspired by your talk today. So, I will open it up to questions. I definitely have questions, but I want to first hear from everybody else. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or thoughts they would like to share with Mariam?
Yeah, don't be shy. I'm happy to chat about anything. So, we're all in a room here together, just hanging out. So let me know what you have on your mind.
Okay, to maybe get the ball rolling on a question. I know it can be difficult sometimes. I know we have some young professionals here, as well as people who are more established. When you have like, oh, I want to pursue this path or this research experience, you mentioned cold emailing is a really great way to get into the room. Do you have an experience that you've been a part of? You mentioned a few fellowships and programs that you would recommend everyone apply to because it's been like very transformational in your life, or has there been a conference that you attended that you'd recommend others to really? I mean, there are hundreds of conferences that happen every year. Is there a conference you recommend for someone to definitely try going to out of all of them? Just kind of both ends, programs as well as conferences.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think I mentioned this in my slides that for me, when I went to the Space Symposium, that was a game changer. I met the president of the CSA at the Canadian booth, and that really opened up that door for me to work at the agency. But broadly, I will say that if you're looking for interdisciplinary space conferences, the big ones that come to mind are IAC, so the International Astronautical Congress. It rotates annually, so there's one that was just in Milan this year, and next year it'll be in Australia. That's a really great forum because you get such a diversity of disciplines. It's a really big gathering, around 10,000 or so people. I think we're in Milan. And I really feel like it's a good melting pot of everything that's going on, but it's very interdisciplinary, so it's not a focused area. Right now in science, AGU is a big one, which is happening in DC. So that's what I would recommend for people who are maybe doing Earth or space science. If you're in the US and you want to meet a lot of the commercial players and also the big sort of agency level decision makers and find a forum where you might run into them, then the Space Symposium is a good one. But I think as a young professional, my biggest piece of advice would be try to join some of these organizations like Space Generation Advisory Council, where it's for people between the ages of 18 to 35, focused on different topics, be it space policy or space medicine or commercial space. And I think that network of peers, that peer network, was really one of the strongest aspects, like joining those groups, meeting those people, and then they're everywhere. It's global. Anywhere I go now, I have a friend in a country who's doing something amazing. So that really makes a difference because that's the next generation of leaders. And within IAF, one program that really helped me attend IAC, their conference, was the Emerging Space Leader Award. Because these conferences are so expensive, the tickets are in thousands of dollars. So I applied for that scholarship and it was really great. There was a cohort of us, 30 of us that were accepted. They became my friends. They paid for everything. So it was perfect. So look for the ESL. They also have that mentorship program I recommended, the Launchpad mentorship, but it's more for people who are trying to do a career change, either within space or getting into space. And that's not just for early stage. You can be up to 40 something, I think, to make that application. And then think about maybe attending IAC. And if you have more questions, if you're in a targeted area, just reach out to me and I can think of more ideas.
Yeah, no, that's great. I actually am trying to apply for the emerging space leaders scholarship as well. So one day I can attend IAC. I see there's a question in the chat as well. So the
Yeah.
question, yeah.
Go
Do you
ahead.
want me
You
to
can.
read it? Yeah, I was gonna say, I have some high school students who have interest in pursuing a career in space exploration, but here in Nigeria, we don't really have a university that offers space-related courses. Not that I know. Can you recommend programs I can expose such students to?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And in fact, I think Yutika, you've been out in Africa doing some work, so you might
I was
even be
gonna
more well
say,
positioned than me to talk about that. So you go first, and then I'll add some points. Go ahead.
definitely. Yeah, I actually was going to say I have some resources that could help. I was actually supposed to go to Nigeria last summer, but because of a protest, I wasn't able to go. There were a few people actually I connected with in Nigeria who are really working Nigeria has a space agency. They do a lot of outreach work. They have a program for students in Nigeria. I actually connected with one of the leaders at the Nigerian Space Agency, who's like one of the general managers. So I would definitely have a good connection to connect you with them with. There's also a company called the Nigerian Commercial Satellite LLT, I believe. I will find the exact name. But they also do a lot of outreach events. They go to local schools and they do outreach. Also, Nigeria has a World Space Week coordinator as well. And there's a lady who does free outreach program for young girls in Nigeria related to aerospace. Her name is Florence. I believe her last name is Abraham, but I know her first name is Florence. And so I know also World Space Week in Nigeria. She's the lead coordinator of that. Um, so they host an event every October for in Nigeria to raise awareness about space. So I actually do have a lot of connections in Nigeria related to people who are in the space industry who could point you towards events, workshops, outreach programs, internships that they do every single year. So I definitely have a lot of resources there. So maybe if you email me, I can actually connect you with some of these people and hopefully you can get some of your students to attend these programs. I believe they all are free, so they're very accessible, but they're based out of Abuja. So I don't know where in Nigeria you are, but they're based. Yeah, go ahead. You have your hand raised.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. I think I know about the Nigeria Space Agency. We've worked and collaborated with them.
Oh, great.
Like I earlier mentioned, yes, I will soon be completing a program with the Midland Space Institute, and we've actually been organizing different space programs for our learners. And it has actually sparked curiosity for some of them. They are beginning to have interest in space exploration. I think I have one of my students who wants to study astromedics, that
Wow.
is, become an astromedical personnel. Yes. So, but the challenge here is there's not a particular university that I know that offers space-related courses. So if they have such dreams and want to study such courses, are there universities probably that they can apply to and then have them admitted to study these courses? I think I also interacted with a staff of mine. He's a graduate. He's actually working. He said what stopped him from chasing his dream from becoming like an was it an astronaut or something? Yeah, he had a dream regarding space exploration, but the reason was because he didn't get a suitable university that has that course to offer, and that's why he had to switch career. So I'm just
Yeah.
asking if there are universities that one could just help check on behalf of my students and then help them apply when they get to grade 12. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer that briefly before passing on to Mariam. Two things that I've seen a lot of people in Africa do is one, they apply to universities outside of Nigeria or outside of Kenya. Not Kenya, I think Kenya has aerospace programs like Tanzania, for example. I went there and there were students who went to Kenya to pursue an aerospace engineering degree program at the University of Nairobi. And there are a few other universities across Africa, and I'm sure in South Africa as well, that they have universities that you can apply to that have an aerospace engineering program in particular. But also, I think one misconception is that to enter the space industry, you must have an aerospace engineering degree, which is, especially if you're talking about like the paramedic or you're interested in the medical field, you could pursue a pre-health major. You could pursue biology, chemistry, a pre-med major, become a physician or go into the nursing field, and then integrate your skills into the space economy. And I think maybe if you talk with your connections with the Nigerian Space Agency, I'm sure they have a space background and may have connections with universities that they're working with that they can recommend you to. But you don't have to pursue an aerospace engineering degree in order to have a space career. I know someone who was in Tanzania who's now having his own aerospace startup in East Africa. He went to Switzerland for his master's program. So also there are, and he went on a full scholarship. So there are international master's degree programs that you can apply for, even if your undergrad was not in space. So if you pursue regular engineering, regular sciences, or any field, and you apply to master's programs like the International Space University and other universities across the globe, you can get full scholarships to attend to enter this field. So there are lots of different ways where you don't have to have an aerospace engineering curriculum in order to enter the space economy.
Yeah.
I'll let Mariam like continue answering that question, but I think that would be my biggest advice is instead of constraining yourself to being like, I have to do aerospace engineering, any general engineering major at any university is going to be so valuable for you to apply those skills into space. So I'll let
Yeah,
Mariam take it
absolutely.
on.
No, I think Gitika, you answered it perfectly. Truly, I also came in with a different background. It wasn't that traditional aerospace engineering focused degree that I had done, but as I said, I sort of was able to take the skills I already have and translate that into the space sector because space needs your skills. It doesn't even have to be engineering, it can be architecture. And then maybe you go and apply to international firm that thinking about design and architecture for space environments. So there's a very big breadth of opportunities right now. I do empathize and can understand that not all these opportunities might be available in your local region or country, which is why, for example, I had to move to another city in Canada. So chasing that space dream can mean sometimes making some moves, but locally there are resources online. So you can do the degrees that are available to you on hand and also look for free resources online or programs that are certificate based where you might pay a small fee and learn a specialization. It's not required, but it's a way to build up your interest in the topic. And then you can apply to a grad program or an opportunity that exists somewhere else if you're open to relocating. Ultimately, I think there's a lot of people at the grassroots level who are trying to create ecosystems in their own countries where space becomes more prominent and more opportunities exist, especially in the developing space nations. But I do realize that we're all at different stages right now, and opportunities are not equally available in different regions. Oh, I
One,
think I had to step out. Any other questions from our audience? Sorry, I think I
yeah,
have.
one of the things, this is Randy, California. Um, One of the things that I'm trying to do is show the kids exactly what you've done. Like, here's all the different careers out there. Is there a resource that exists that I can say, because I know like the DoD STEM program says here, if you're interested in chemistry, here's where you can go
Yeah.
become a chemist inside the military or
Mhm.
wherever, some other industries. Is there something like that that you would recommend for the space programs?
I have one that's coming to mind more immediately because I do more astrobiology, planetary science, and they have on the NASA astrobiology program website, and I can put the link here real quick. Let me look for it. It's a good one where they have what are all the different ways to become an astrobiologist, like a career path infographic. And it's great because it really shows you that there's so many ways. You could be a chemist, you could be a geologist, you could be a physicist, and I'll just drop the link here. Um, this is a good one where it lists a lot of different pathways, opportunities, undergraduate programs, grad programs, and astrobiology is that sort of big umbrella we talked about where we're thinking about life in the universe. That so many scientists from different backgrounds are coming together to solve this question. And there's career paths now in astrobiology research. If your students have specific areas they're interested in, shoot Gitika or I a message after, and I can think about other resources.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And if you think it will be helpful, I'm happy to send over more slides. So you said your students are in high school right now, yes?
No, that was somebody else, but I sit at the district office, so I impact like K through 12, so
Okay.
kindergarten all the way 12th grade. One
Yeah.
of the things that seems to be eye-opening is students still look at, well, I think even adults look at the space program and they think like engineer and
Mm.
astronaut. Those are the things that you've got to be in order to be a part of the program.
No.
Went to a conference and then it opened up my eyes. Like there are so many different avenues. Like if you're interested in the space program, there's so many places you can be a part of. Like a financier, somebody who's just interested in running numbers and doing project management would be huge in this industry.
Oh,
So
they
trying,
are.
yeah,
Yeah.
trying to get
No,
the students to see that.
yeah, absolutely. And if it's helpful at all, like I'm happy to come and chat with them online and show them that, you can come from a different background and be in space. You don't have to be like have an undergrad in aerospace and then have like a PhD. I am doing a PhD now, but that's not how I started in space. So there's so many ways to get there now. And
Okay.
we really need to change that narrative because truly, I think it's the next frontier. So how on earth you have all these economies that is needed to actually sustain our terrestrial ecosystem. When you're in space, you're going to need everybody. You're going to need the financiers. You're going to need yes, you're going to need the engineers and the scientists, but you're also going to need the people who are doing human resources in space or thinking about the architecture. So if we want to build an ecosystem, we need to create an inclusive community where everyone thinks they can contribute to that ecosystem. That's how we're going to build the future.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm
Something
hoping to show them.
Yeah, something I'll quickly add to that is I heard the conversation even though I was like jumping out for a second. I actually got a recent grant from the Washington Space Business Roundtable to host the space events in schools, and we're actually trying to go to different schools to host the space camp workshops. Yeah, I was going to mention when you said that you are working with students right now, it's like a perfect area of collaboration potentially, because I what we're trying to do is we're curating a during school hours program so it's accessible to students. We're actually working with one school March of next year where we're going and doing like an assembly with the students. So it's a 2 hour program that they wanted to do. We can definitely cater to every school system and how the school would like to do it. But for them, they wanted to do a 2 hour program during school hours for their fourth through sixth graders, where we have for the first hour like a assembly where we have like an astronaut speaker who comes in, speaks with all the students. We talk about space careers, we take their questions, we introduce them to, hey, what is space? Like, have you seen that rocket launch? Like, what does that mean? What careers can you pursue in space? And we give like this very fun, engaging like talk. And then the next hour for how many ever students the school can accommodate space for, this particular school wanted to do it with all their sixth graders because it aligned with their curriculum. We're actually bringing in model rockets that we're going to teach all the kids in groups to build and then launch at the back of the school. So we're going to do like this 2 hour curated event to inspire students to think creatively, to believe that they can enter the space sector and become rocket scientists. Because I think in the earlier session, I mentioned to you, Randy, that I got into space because of my middle school tech ed teacher through a rocketry club. And that gave me the confidence to be like, hey, I can be a rocket scientist. Like, I can enter this field. Like, maybe this is not as challenging as it looks. It is challenging, but it just gave me the confidence to be like, this is something I can actually do. And so
Yeah.
we recently got a grant to be able to do this at other schools. So I don't know where you're based out of, but maybe that's something that we can try working towards, like doing an event at one of your schools or multiple schools.
Yeah, well, I know I have an elementary school already that might be thrilled because the principal's excited about it. Because you have to find the
Nice.
teachers, and then I know I have a middle school that has a science teacher that's very excited about it. The problem, I wouldn't even say it's a problem. The challenge that I'm faced with at this point is trying to make sure that people see that there's a value in this. Like I went and talked to a few principals in middle school and
Yeah.
said there is career opportunities here. You might have kids that yeah, they're going to go off and be some sort of a doctor, lawyer kind of idea. But there's a whole nother industry that's out there. Would you like us to come to your career day and show these things off? And like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't think so. That's just a whole nother area that we're not ready for.
Mhm.
So trying to show them, get them
Yeah.
excited. So we started doing some of those things. So if I can, yeah, if there's a way to make that connection for the kids, I probably could do one or two schools easily to make it happen.
That's
I'm out of
Yeah.
California, so the United States, Southern California, Disneyland
Okay.
is usually how I try to say. It's like right down the road.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
People
No, that's
relate that
amazing.
way.
We can definitely explore that because I think that's something we can definitely help with. And even if you, yeah, if there's anything that we can do and you think that there's possibly like if it could be helpful, like I just wanted to let you know that that's definitely an option and it's something that we could definitely pull together.
Yeah,
awesome.
I saw Logan was on the call too, and so I've worked with him a few times to have Fred Hayes come in just to say, can we do this? Are they interested? So he just did some video conferences with the kids and had them asking questions of an astronaut. So those things,
Yeah.
the kids are excited. Like this guy was in space, Apollo 13 a long time ago, and the kids don't even have like this connection with him, but they were still like connected to him. Like they had
Yeah.
all these questions about what it was like and how do you prepare for this? What was your career journey? So I know if we bring in people that are more connected to like the modern day, it's even going to have a bigger impact.
Yeah, the modern day space ecosystem. Yeah, I would say one quick thought that was coming to mind, Gitika, is that have the astronaut there for sure because space has a lot of inspirational value. It's fun to talk to somebody who just came back from space, but maybe there's an opportunity to have a commercial astronaut. That could be one thing because they come from a lot of very diverse interdisciplinary backgrounds, and then that might break the stereotype that, oh, you had to have been in military or a PhD or something to get into space. So the narrative of who goes to space is changing. That might be something to think about. Or even somebody who's in the space ecosystem that is not an astronaut to break that narrative too, that the only people in space have to be astronauts. There's a lot of other different professionals now in this ecosystem doing some really exciting things. I always get really excited by space architecture. I'm like, how amazing is that to like think
Yeah.
about design and space and it just the sort of intersection of that is so fascinating to me. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
And
very
Mary,
excited to hear about these initiatives.
yeah, and
Well,
now I just realized that you're in the DMV area. So I'm actually doing this in Fairfax County. It's one of the Title One schools. I
oh,
don't know if you're
I'm.
available. Oh,
What you said, Fairfax? Is that Florida?
yeah. No,
Or
Fairfax, Virginia.
oh, very sorry.
Yeah,
I'm not
no,
in
no
Virginia
worries.
though. Other side of the world.
Other
Other
side,
side
I
of the
know when you said
state.
California, I was like, you're on the other side. But yes,
Yeah.
Mariam, like I don't know if you're available,
Oh,
or
sorry.
if you know anyone who would be available, but it would be so cool to have someone who's actually in the aerospace industry as well as like an astronaut to be there. I can send you the details of the
Yeah,
event in case you're able to be there. It's during like work hours, so I don't know if you'd be available, but it's March 20th, 1 to 3 p.m. I can send you an email. But if you or if you know anybody else, like who you work with, who you think would be interested in coming,
of
or
course.
just any suggestions of people who are in the Virginia, DC,
Yeah,
DMV Nova area who would be able to
awesome.
attend, that would be awesome. Because I think one of the barriers to getting a commercial astronaut is I don't know of any that are based out of
Yeah,
the DMV area. So
okay.
I don't want to, I wouldn't be able to pay for their costs of being able
Yeah,
to travel there, but I'd be able to locally try seeing if we can get someone to
get
come there.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's brainstorm. I'm depending on availability, I'm also happy to step in. But let's, yeah, send me the details and we can think about this. I think what you're doing is really amazing, so I'm happy to try to support it in any capacity I can. Yeah,
Awesome. Yes. Thank you so much. I'll definitely send you an email after this. Yeah.
awesome. Cool.
Okay. Any other questions for Miriam? I know we have about 10 more minutes. It doesn't even have to be questions. It could be general thoughts or anything anybody wants to share. Yes, Randy, go ahead.
I'm dominating the conversation now, but there's been a lot of conversations around because I saw that you not only were interested in aerospace, but then also the ocean itself and
Yes,
making those connections because we know that like 75% of the world is covered with water, and we haven't done a whole lot of exploration underneath the ocean
absolutely.
because of the limitations. So,
No,
is there a connection that I can make for students to say, hey, you can experience space by just staying here on the planet and going
no, I
underwater?
love that question. I love it because the ocean is another big passion of mine. And as I said, these icy ocean worlds in the outer solar system, that would be a great connection for them. So I'll send you a link later, but they are basically these moons, icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn, Europa and Enceladus in particular, that I'm interested in. And under kilometers of ice, they think there's a global liquid water ocean. So a lot of the same processes where different currents are moving, or there might even be at the interface where the seafloor is. We think there might even be hydrothermal vents based on some of the spacecraft data that the plume has sampled over there. It's crazy. Yeah. Imagine, because on Earth, life exists at hydrothermal vents. So that's why these ocean worlds are compelling targets for life, because if they potentially also have hydrothermal vents, that might be a source where life could exist on these ocean worlds. So we think of them as oceans in space. It's not like an exposed liquid water ocean because it's frozen, so there's ice all around it. But underneath all that ice, yes, there might actually be water based on the spacecraft data we see and eruptions we see in space. So there are linkages. And in fact, exactly what you said, right now, the terrestrial oceanography community is very interested in ocean world planetary science. They're trying to take their knowledge from oceanographic processes on Earth, instrumentation, thinking about how to search for life in these deep environments like hydrothermal vents, what are the chemical reactions happening there, and trying to translate that to what we think might exist on these ocean worlds. So there's a lot of sort of interdisciplinary science happening right now between the Earth ocean community and the planetary science ocean world community. Yeah, that's a big topic right now, actually. A lot of collaborations happening in that space.
Yeah. So any resources you have, like you have, I'll take it. Again, I've got this huge list that I don't know what I'm going to do with, but
Yeah, of course. Oh, I think we have something in the comments, Gitika, suggestion for you.
Yeah, yeah, I just saw. Wait, that's so cool. I
That's
actually didn't
awesome.
realize. Let me reach out to him then. I did not realize.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever connected with him before, but let me
He
see if
could be your
he has.
astronaut.
Yeah, I reached out to astronaut Katie Coleman because I know she's based out of Nova, I believe.
Yeah.
Because I know she gave a talk at Naismith once, so I reached out to her. But yes, let me also reach out to astronaut Lindgren. I haven't actually connected with him before, so thank you so much, Viba, for that. Also, if you happen to be in Virginia during that time, I know you go to school at UVA. Like, it'd be super cool to have someone else involved, someone who's interning at NASA to be a part of this event. We want as many young people as possible. So, if you're interested in like volunteering or possibly are available, I would love to have you there as well.
Yeah, love all the collaborations coming out of this. It's wonderful. That's how we move initiatives along. I mean, you do so much outreach, Gitika, and such amazing like the space education summit series. So I'm really inspired by you, all the energy and the passion you bring to your work and how you make these connections and bring these opportunities to students. It's really great work. So if there's any way we
Thank
can
you.
support you, just let us know.
Definitely. Oh, thank you so much. That makes my day.
And I
Yeah,
see
any other? Yes.
Viva dropped her email for you, Gitika, just a quick.
Yes, I just got that. Awesome. Yeah, any other questions? We've got about another 5 minutes before a lunch break. We could also end early. But any other questions before I give a thank you message to Miriam again?
And I know quickly that Randy had some resources that I was going to share with him. So maybe Gitika, if you, Randy, do you want to drop your email in here for us? And then I can send the stuff to you, Gitika, and you can forward it off to people who are interested, like some links to programs or organizations that might be of interest.
Definitely, yeah. I don't think I have anyone's emails. So yeah, that would be great.
you have mine now.
Okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
Yeah, I guess I don't know, like I was inspired by space education, I don't know, so many years ago. Like I was going through school and the space shuttle program was floating around and happening. And then it kind of tapered off for me. Like I didn't pursue anything in that area and then got into education, becoming an educator. And I tried to bring the same thing that you guys are trying to do, trying to bring in like what I did before I became a teacher, is the things that we could do for the kids.
Mhm.
And then now here I am on the far end of this career going, oh my gosh, there's so much more that we could do. It's not done. So, I'm just overwhelmed by so many resources and how much is out there and how much is booming that I'm trying to figure out how to scale that down to like what can the kids consume and what can I do to inspire them and then let them run from that point. So we appreciate everything that you guys have been talking about.
Yeah, and everything that you do as well, Randy. It's really amazing, how you're thinking about the students and exposing them to all these opportunities. Really important work.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think a few people dropped their emails. Gitika, did you take that down? And maybe I can just email you some stuff and you can forward it along, or is that
Yeah,
okay?
or if you wanted to take the emails yourself, so that way it's just a direct link, so I don't like miss anyone, that would also be amazing.
Great. Let me just do that real quick then.
And then if there is someone who reaches out to me afterwards, I could definitely, or if you CC me on that email, I can
Oh,
forward
sweet.
that email to anybody else who asks.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, so thank you so much, Mariam, again for doing this talk. I think I've already said this, but I'm going to say it again because I think you're so cool. You're such a like girl boss, and it was so amazing to have you in this talk. So really, thank you so much for inspiring us all. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, of course. And you're a girl boss, Gitika. I'm so inspired by everything you do. Let me know, if there's anything I can ever help with, or if you have time when you're in DC, Virginia. Always happy to connect in person too. Yep. Take care.
I love that.